welcome to Confused Reviews, where Cartoon Drawing reviews movies. And in the last episode, I reviewed the second Elm Street movie, and now, for some reason, Freddy has decided to have me review A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
I forgot that this was the, good sequel.
Yeah, so if you'll excuse me, let me get to it.
I should have had you review Jason Goes to Hell.
You and I both know that experience would have been just as painful for me as it would have been for you.
Yeah, that movie is a piece of shit.
Anyways, Freddy's Revenge was quite a detour from the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and I assume a lot of that was the fact that Wes Craven did not return for the sequel. It did, however, make a fuck ton of money, and therefore Wes must have decided that there had to be at least a little bit more of a story for Freddy Krueger and the Children of Elm Street. So, for a lack of better words, Dream Warriors was actually the first true sequel to the 1984 original, and Freddy's Revenge was a nightmare that, for sake of argument, didn't happen at all. Thankfully, in 1987, we got the return that we were all waiting for, with no homoeroticism. Thankfully. Explaining that was really draining. Part 3 tells the story of Kristen, your average teenager. She gets very little sleep, has hardships with her parents, and has frequent run-ins with a burn victim that kills you in your sleep. You know, average teenager. She, along with the remaining kids of Elm Street, have to band together to stop the one and only Freddy Krueger. This is also regarded as one of, if not the best Elm Street flick. So let's dive into the third outing in the series and see if it's really that good or is overrated. It is fantastic. I'm just saying that so it doesn't sound very one-sided. Anyways, this is A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. So the film begins with everyone's favorite late-night activity, paper mache making. Oh, and Lawrence Fishburne is credited as Larry. Oh, no, wait!
Larry! Larry! Larry!
After the opening credits, we see Kristen, played by Patricia Arquette, is the one making the arts and crafts. Or maybe she's up late studying for an exam. Because trust me, I've had those nights. She falls asleep and wakes up in front of 1428 Elm with those same little girls singing Freddy's theme song. She has a chat with Jigsaw's sister, and she follows her into the abandoned house. Kirsten eventually finds the girl in the basement next to the skull-filled furnace and scoops her up and runs away. Freddy, played once again by Robert Englund, chases after her, and she gets stuck in some tar for a second, but obviously escapes. But she ends up in Freddy's giant room of hanging bodies and looks back at the little girl to find out that she was a skeleton the whole time. She jolts awake, as expected, and heads to the bathroom. That was an awesome opening. Get you right into the Elm Street mood, if that makes any sense. She is then attacked by the faucet, and the other one morphs into Freddy's glove and slashes at her wrist. This, of course, isn't actually what it looks like to any bystander, as her mom walks in to see her cutting at her wrist with every emo's favorite, a razor blade. We then head over to Weston Hills Psychiatric Hospital to see Max, played by the badass Lawrence Fishburne, and Neil Gordon, played by Greg Wasson. Kirsten is brought in and won't let them put her to sleep, for obvious reasons. She starts singing that damn lullaby again when it's interrupted by Nancy Thompson herself, played by Heather Langenkamp. Thank God, she's awesome. She's also sporting some gray hair from the obvious trauma, but I thought she died. In the end of the first, she's presumed dead. Well, apparently Wes Craven didn't want her to die, but they wanted that open-ended conclusion, so they must have said, fuck it, and decided she wasn't done yet. Neil and Nancy chat for a bit, especially about a kid who cut off his own eyelids. Thank God this movie wasn't made in present day, or else we'd have this fuckhole to deal with too. Neil also sees a random nun who vanishes quickly. Spooky. Max takes Nancy to meet our group, Philip, played by Bradley Gregg, as well as my personal favorite of the group, Kincaid, played by Ken Sugoats, and also the mute Joey, played by Rodney Eastman. Back at Kirsten's house, Nancy heads up to her room to see the half-finished art project and presumably has Vietnam flashbacks. Hopping back to the hospital, Kirsten falls asleep and sees a self-driving tricycle roll in. That's actually up next on Google's list after finishing the self-driving cars. Look it up. It's not actually real. Don't actually do that. It then implodes on itself, and she's back in Freddy's house. Cool. She then sees he prepared a nice dinner for the two of them that I don't think was cooked long enough. We then get to one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Freddy, disguised as a snake, bursts out of the wall and starts to eat her, which is freaky enough as is, but she starts to yell for Nancy and pulls her into the dream. Nancy and Freddy do a little catching up, and we cut to the next scene. The two discuss how fucking cool it is being able to drag someone into a dream and that Freddy is indeed real. Next, we cut to the group meeting, and we meet the rest of the victims. Teens. There's Will, played by Ira Hayden, Jennifer, played by Penelope Sudrow, who has the voice of Jennifer Tilly and looks a lot like the protagonist from the fourth movie, Tuesday Night. Anyways, also there's Taryn, played by Jennifer Rubin. Corey Feldman's look-alike and sound-alike brother here then says that no one believes him about Freddy. Well, obviously, parents are incompetent in horror movies. Freddy then morphs into one of Philip's puppets and goes after him. Let me just say that the stop motion used for this scene is phenomenal and makes you go, if this movie was made today, They just slapped together some shitty CGI and be done with it. 80s movies were so much more cool. Anyways, Freddy regains his normal size and cuts Philip's arms and legs and pulls out the tendons and makes him walk like a marionette. Fucking awesome. Philip is brought to the roof and Joey happens to notice it and tries to get help. In this suspenseful and heart-pounding scene, most of the group runs in to yell at him, but it's no use. Freddy cuts the strings and he falls to his death. The group rekindles and Taryn starts yelling at Kincaid.
How long are you gonna last?
Until the next movie, the first 20 minutes, and he gets stabbed in the chest in a really disappointing death scene. In case you were curious. Kincaid also freaks out at the news of evening sedations, and it might be in the top 5 best movie quotes of all time. No joke.
For everybody. The fuck you will. Anybody tries drugs on me, get his ass kicked.
And it doesn't stop there.
Now sit down. Fuck you. You sit down. Easy, Kincaid.
Man, I love Kincaid. Jennifer is watching TV and convinces Max to let her keep it on. While watching the Dick Carvet show, Shasha Kapoor is talking about God knows what when he turns into Freddy and the TV turns to static. Freddy's right though. Who gives a fuck about what she thinks? She walks up to it and 2 mechanical arms emerge and Freddy's head rises out of it and he says one of, if not my favorite, Freddy line.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Now I love this death. The way it looks and basically everything about it is awesome. But if I was a doctor at this hospital and saw this, I would think something is wrong. What, did she just jump into the fucking TV? No, obviously something crazy happened, not just, oh, she wanted to kill herself, so she jumped headfirst into a fucking TV that's mounted on the wall. God, these doctors are stupid. Still a cool death regardless, though. At Jennifer's funeral, I think, maybe Phillips. It's not really made clear, but either way, someone got gypped out of one. Anyways, Neil talks to that spooky nurse again, played by Nan Martin, about faith and how his spirit has to be put to rest. Talking about Freddy, of course. They have another group session, and Nancy convinces and explains Freddy and Kirsten's dream powers. Neil then has the group hypnotized and makes them fall asleep.
I'm going to count backwards from 5. When I finish, you will all be asleep.
Yeah, like that'll work.
3, 2, 1.
Luke! Luke! Wake up!
Cecil? From the horror show channel?
Yeah, you're asleep, and I came here to get you back on track.
Okay, how?
Wake the fuck up!
Alright, I will. Jeez. That was weird. They think the hypnosis didn't work and Joey runs off with the nurse he's been crushing on the whole movie. They then realize they are dreaming and go through all their powers. Cutting back over to Joey, he starts to get some action when the nurse grows a big-ass tongue and ties Joey up. Man, that's 2 Elm Street movies in a row with abnormally long tongues. Gross. I think we found out Freddy's fetish. Besides killing kids, of course. The room then morphs into a hellish trash compactor, and Nurse Bitch here then barges in to stop the whole thing. Joey's said to be in a deep coma, and Nancy and Neil are fired. What a bummer. Neil sees the nun again and chases after her. He finds her and she finally explains the backstory of Freddy beyond that he killed some kids. She explains how Amanda Krueger was locked in with hundreds of crazy people and raped by them. She labels Freddy as
The bastard son of 100 maniacs.
But, to conceive a child, it's only 1 sperm that matched with the egg that creates it. So, I don't know how much research the filmmakers did, but then again, the bastard son of one maniac who was one of hundreds who raped his mom isn't as catchy. He also figures out that he needs to find Freddy's bones and lay them to rest. Freddy also carves a message into Joey's chest for Nancy. Sure beats sending a text, that's for sure. Nancy and Neil head to the bar to find Officer Thompson, played once again by John Saxton, and they ask him where Freddy was buried, and she also says,
I think we can stop him this time. Stop him for good.
If you only knew, honey, there's 5 movies after this. Nancy leaves to help Kirsten, and Neil, being a total badass, tells Thompson that they were going to find Freddy's bones. No exceptions. But before they can do that, Neil goes and gets some holy water, the same way the Frog Brothers would. Nancy makes it to the hospital at the same time Neil arrives at Freddy's resting place. The group joins Kirsten in the dream, and Freddy starts cutting up the place. Man, that's going to be a bitch to clean up, Freddy. We then have deja vu to the beginning of the movie, except this time Freddy kills her mom and she escapes, with 0 wrist cutting this time. Taryn, looking like a sexy greaser, is ambushed by Freddy. His fingers then turn into needles, and her previous wounds turn into suction cups. Man, those needle fingers are creepier than the knives. I fucking hate needles. She gets injected and dies. No need to feel sad, though. We jump right over to Will, who turns into the Wizard Master, who is a mix of Dracula and Emperor Palpatine. He's quickly disarmed and killed by Freddy. Damn it. The group, who's narrowed down to 3 plus Joey, tries to find the mute bastard while Neil and Thompson find Freddy's remains. They then find Joey and start toying with him. Oh, Freddy, you silly son of a bitch. Nancy stabs him with a pipe and he pulls it out like it's nothing and licks the blood. Nasty and cool. Oh, and we see his chest of souls, which really looks cool, but probably gives him a nasty rash, especially with that old unwashed sweater on. Why am I thinking about that? Anyways, back in the B story, they're trapped in and Freddy's skeletons start to fuck them up, killing Thompson and knocking out Neil. Again, that stop motion is top notch. The group is trapped in a room full of mirrors and they're almost destroyed until Joey unleashes his power, his voice. Nice work, Joey. You killed him. Or that's what they think. We then realize it's not over because Nancy's dad returns to apologize. Unfortunately, we don't get a happy ending and Nancy is killed. She was the best. Neil wakes up and throws that fucker's bones into the hole and drowns them in holy water, making him spin around and implode, killing him off. We cut to Nancy's funeral and see the nun one last time, who shows him that she was Amanda Krueger. And our tale comes to an end with Neil sleeping and the now finished model of Freddy's house lighting up, indicating that he might not be dead just yet. Which he obviously isn't. And that was A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, and it's fantastic. Not only are the kills top-notch and everyone is awesome, their performances from Nancy, Neil, and all of the teens are great. Freddy is at a perfect blend of horror and comedy. Not swaying to one side makes for a menacing and terrifying villain. Heather Langenkamp is still phenomenal as Nancy Thompson. All of the teens are unique and you actually root for them, and are saddened when they die, which I almost never feel when I watch a horror movie with teenagers in it. The soundtrack is also awesome, and one of the best in any horror movie ever. The special effects, from the stop motion to the gore and blood and guts, are fantastic, and might be the best in the series. I adore almost every frame of this movie, from the cinematography, writing, to the great characters. It's also one of my favorite horror movies, and definitely my favorite Elm Street movie. One of the only things I can think wrong about this movie is that the doctors throughout the whole movie think there's nothing wrong. Well, you lost all but 3 of your patients. Good job, dumbass. Plus, I feel like Will's death could have had some more to it. Maybe like Super Freddy or something along those lines, but it still was kind of a decent kill. Overall, I love this movie, and I honestly can't express how great this movie is to anyone who hasn't seen it. It just needs to be experienced for yourself. I highly recommend it to horror fans and, well, fans of movies. And also to people who like movies with great characters. And I'm undoubtedly giving A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors an A+. Because it's one of the best horror movies ever made, the best Elm Street movie, and one of my personal favorite movies. And for me, on a side note, I think the series could have stopped right here. Sure, part 2 is weird, but it still was enjoyable and was like a weird side story of the Elm Street legacy. Because it finishes the story of Nancy Thompson, lays Freddy to rest while still giving an effective cliffhanger, and kills off almost every one of the Elm Street kids. There's not much else they could do, but they sure did stretch it.
Good. Now, next up...
No, I'm done. I reviewed 2 in a row. Now, fuck off.
Never. What the hell?
Did you forget you're in the real world?
Fuck, this is such a cop-out.
But without Tracy Morgan.
That joke is worse than me getting shot. Fuck. I'll be back, you bastard.
What the fuck? Now that that's over, I'm Confused Reviews. Thanks for watching.